Om Namah Shivaya. The press has not always been religion's best friend, though there are signs that this may be changing. In this keynote, we will speak on the topic of religion and the media, and we will look back at how India and Hinduism have fared in the public square and offer some keys to improving the relationship. For us, the subject of religion and the media is autobiographical. We publish Hinduism Today magazine as a non-profit service to our faith, and in it we record the modern history of a billion-strong religion in Renaissance. We report equally on all of the sects and lineages and sampradayas. We report on the temples that Hindus are building, on their monasteries and ashrams and festivals, on the questions that people ask and the protocols within the faith. Our editorial team provides educational materials for schools, families, and institutions. Basically, we're inspiring Hindus to understand and follow the path of Dharma. To begin our keynote, let's set some basic definitions and then discuss the realities of journalism in order to offer strategies for a better relationship. It's an obvious but crucial truism that media, such as newspapers, magazines, and television, are a business expected to turn a profit. This business sells as news, information, and entertainment. The media have criteria for determining what is news. Every day, journalists around the world ponder whether some event or issue is worthy of being published, according to the established criteria. I grew curious about how America's media has dealt with India, and I wondered whether there'd been any noticeable evolution. I did some research into the major articles that have appeared on the cover of Time magazine over the years. What we found was fascinating. In March of 1930, Time reported on Mahatma Gandhi's visit to London. It stressed his meager attire, his 80-mile barefoot walk from Southampton to London, and yet the cover calls him Saint Gandhi. 10 months later, the Mahatma again appeared on the cover, this time as man of the year, no less. And though he was so highly honored, the journalists could not restrain their need to be dismissive, and they wrote the following. Curiously, it was in a jail that the year's end found the little half-naked brown man whose 1930 mark on world history will undoubtedly loom largest of all. The next cover didn't come until 1947. It was titled The Trial of Kali, and had a ferocious goddess Kali clad provocatively in an India-shaped cloth, slaying herself. India was suffering. Journalists turned to the most bizarre of images, writing, even most Hindus no longer participated in the rites of Kali's priests, who dismembered gods in lieu of human victims, spraying the blood upon worshippers crowded in fields of which Kali was mother, fructifier, and scourge. But they also wrote this. India has been and is a great and ancient land, a wellspring and tabernacle of some of the most inspired conceptions of the divine will in man, which man has ever dreamed of, and more lately a fount of brotherhood, and among the nations a preacher of peace. Clearly, Time is conflicted about India. 12 years later, in December of 1959, Nehru made the cover, showing the dragon China slithering through the Himalayas into India. At the time, Eisenhower was about to visit in support of the Chinese incursions, and amazingly, Time wrote, India and the U.S., so very different, so long at odds in foreign policy, now find themselves accenting what they have in common. They are the world's two largest democracies. The first signs of friendship, and not a word about naked Indians, Though there was this parting shot. There are Indian millionaires who religiously feed ants to show their reverence for life. In 1971, the India-Pakistan rush to war found itself on the cover. It was all about the conflict and not much about India or her culture, though it did give a nod to India's economic progress. With $50 billion in gross national product, India has begun producing all manner of sophisticated materials, from complex computers to nuclear reactors and jet aircraft. Fully 13 years pass until December of 1984, when India again is showcased. This time it was the horrors of Bhopal and the death of thousands when toxic gas was released from a Union Carbide pesticide plant. There was a great sympathy and human concern in the article, a sense that somehow the entire world had suffered. And Time wrote it was in fact the world's tragedy that occurred in Bhopal, not only because one saw fellow mortals stricken, but because the industrial society has created a shared fragility. Fast forward to 2006, when India Incorporated comes to the cover. This time the image is all about beauty and business. It's a creative and exotic juxtaposition of the old and the new. The cover declares why the world's biggest democracy is the next great economic superpower and what it means for America. Inside the article is all about modern, surging, energetic India. Listen to this gushing accolade. Few modern Americans are surprised to find that their dentist or lawyer is of Indian origin, or are shocked to hear how vital Indians have been to California's high-tech industry. In ways big and small, Indians are changing the world. The article is a love fest in which India is praised as never before. India has been discovered, and America is obviously working hard to make friends with her. This quote from the article says it all. India is younger and freer than China. Many of its companies are already innovative world beaters. India is playing catch-up for sure, but it has the skills, the people, and the sort of hustle and dynamism that Americans respect to do so. It deserves the new notice it has gotten in the U.S. We are all about to discover this elephant can dance. So here we've come, from one exotic goddess to another, in a short 59 years. It turns out that the Western image of yoga has undergone some equally dramatic changes in the press. Compare these images from the last century with their impoverished and ascetic tone with these from the 21st century, a vision of yoga as the paragon of style, fitness, and beauty, worthy of the poshest spa. In 1911, this headline was published by the Los Angeles Times. A Hindu apple for modern Eve. The cult of the yogis lures women to destruction. Later that year, Current Literature published this. The heathen invasion of America, which concluded, literally yoga means the path that leads to wisdom. Actually, it is proving the way that leads to domestic infelicity and insanity and death. Compare that with Time magazine's opening paragraph to its cover story on yoga in 2001. Stars do it, sports do it, judges in the highest courts do it. Let's do it, that yoga thing. A path to enlightenment that winds back 5,000 years in its native India. Yoga has suddenly become so hot, so cool, so very this minute. So, over the years, bizarre practice has become upscale workout, and yoga now boasts nearly 20 million followers in the U.S. Time has put it twice on their cover in recent years, in April of 2001 and January of 2003.